1964, the year the Civil Rights Act was signed. Cassius Clay became Muhammad Ali, and the Beatles invaded America. While politicians debated and protesters marched, music was changing forever. Today, we're exploring the songs that define this pivotal year, tracks that might surprise you with their true origins and lasting impact. Duality by Manfred Mann burst onto the airwaves in 1964, but most fans don't realize this British invasion powerhouse began as a jazz outfit called the Man Hug Blues Brothers. Formed in 1962 by keyboard player Manfred Mann and drummer Mike Hug, the band reluctantly shifted toward pop music at their record label's insistence. The irony? Manfred Mann himself, born Michael Lubowitz in South Africa, reportedly disliked the very pop songs that made him famous, considering them beneath his musical abilities as a jazz pianist. The band's breakthrough hit, Do-Wah-Diddy-Diddy, wasn't even their original song. It was a cover of a track by the little-known American girl group The Exciters, released just a year earlier. While the original barely dented the charts, Manfred Mann's version shot to #1 in both the UK and the US. Despite numerous lineup changes over the decades, Mann himself continued performing under various incarnations of the band name, with Manfred Mann's Earth Band achieving 1970 success with hits like Blinded by the Light. At 83 years old, Mann still occasionally performs, though he's focused much of his later career on composing music for films and advertising. Here's a surprising fact few know. Despite the band being named after him, Manfred Mann wasn't the lead vocalist on Do-Wah-Diddy-Diddy, or most of their early hits. That honor belonged to Paul Jones, whose smooth vocals defined their sound. Jones left the band in 1966 to pursue an acting career and solo work. The naming convention created tension within the group, as Mann received disproportionate attention despite the collaborative nature of their music, an arrangement that frustrated the other talented musicians in the lineup. I Get Around marked a turning point for the Beach Boys, firmly establishing them as America's answer to the British invasion bands flooding the charts in 1964. Though they're now associated with California sunshine and surf culture, the band's early reality was far darker. Under the iron-fisted control of their father, Murray Wilson, who allegedly struck Brian Wilson so hard he permanently lost hearing in one ear, the original lineup of brothers, Brian, Dennis, and Carl Wilson, cousin Mike Love, and friend Al Jardine, endured relentless pressure and abuse that shaped both their music and fragile psyches. The song represented Brian Wilson's growing sophistication as a composer and producer, being their first U.S. #1 hit and arriving at a pivotal moment in American music. By this time, Brian was already exhibiting signs of the mental health struggles that would later derail his career. Despite his musical genius, he stopped touring with the band just months after I Get Around topped the charts, suffering a nervous breakdown on a flight to Houston. While the Beach Boys continued performing in various configurations over the decades, Brian's retreat from public life and struggles with mental illness and controlling handlers cast a shadow over the sunny image they projected. In recent years, surviving members have toured separately, with ongoing legal disputes between Mike Love and Brian Wilson over the band's name and legacy. Contrary to their clean-cut image, the Beach Boys were far from innocent surfer boys in reality. Dennis Wilson was the only actual surfer in the band, and more disturbingly, he later formed a friendship with Charles Manson, even recording some of Manson's songs before the cult leader's violent crimes came to light. Manson and his followers briefly lived at Dennis's home, and the dark association haunted Dennis until his death by drowning in 1983. The contrast between their harmonious music and troubled personal lives represents one of rock music's most profound disconnects. So, what memories did these songs bring back for you? Did you ever see the Beach Boys or any of these bands live? Share your stories in the comments below. If this trip down memory lane hits home, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into the music that shaped our generation. And hey, if you know someone who lived through these golden years of music, share this video. It might spark some great conversations. My Guy gave Motown Records its first #1 pop hit by a solo female artist.
I saw you passing by.
But Mary Wells' story is one of the music industry's most cautionary tales. Discovered at just 17 years old while trying to pitch songs to Berry Gordy, Wells quickly became Motown's first major female star. Despite her clean-cut image, Wells was entangled in a controversial relationship with her much older manager, who she married at just 17. Behind her smooth vocals and elegant persona lay business decisions that would ultimately derail her promising career. At the height of her fame in 1964, Wells made a decision that altered music history. She left Motown for 20th Century Fox, lured by promises of movie roles and a $500,000 contract. What seemed like a shrewd move proved disastrous. The Beatles had named her their favorite American singer, and she had just completed a tour with them when she switched labels. But her departure from Motown's hit-making machine led to a swift decline in her chart success. By the 1970s, her career had stalled, and in a cruel twist, she developed throat cancer in 1990.
I have cancer. I'm fighting for my life.
Losing her voice and ability to perform before dying in 1992 at just 49 years old. She spent her final years nearly penniless, with fellow artists raising money to cover her medical expenses. The tragic postscript to Wells' story influenced music industry contracts for generations. After her departure, Berry Gordy ensured all Motown artists signed contracts with stricter terms. Meanwhile, Wells' sudden exit from the label meant many of her planned singles were given to other Motown artists, including My Guy, which had originally been conceived with a different arrangement. Producer Smokey Robinson retooled several songs intended for Wells, helping launch the careers of other Motown legends like the Supremes, who might not have had the same trajectory had Wells remained with the label. Leader of the Pack by the Shangri-Las brought teenage tragedy with its melodramatic tale of star-crossed lovers and fatal motorcycle accidents. The group consisted of two sets of sisters, Mary and Betty Weiss, alongside twins Marge and Marianne Ganzer from Queens, New York, who were still in high school when they recorded their biggest hit. Unlike the polished professional image of many girl groups of the era, the Shangri-Las cultivated a tougher, street-smart persona that raised eyebrows. Their bad girl image wasn't entirely manufactured. The group reportedly got into physical altercations with other girl groups and faced discrimination when touring in the South because some venues mistakenly believed they were black performers based on their sound. Despite their string of hits in 1964 and 1965, the Shangri-Las career was surprisingly brief. By 1968, they had disbanded amid legal disputes with their record label and management. Their producer, Shadow Morton, crafted their dramatic sound, but reportedly controlled their careers with an iron grip. The group members saw little of the money their hits generated, a common story for artists of that era. Mary Weiss, the lead singer, retreated from the music industry entirely for decades, working in architectural design before finally releasing a solo album in 2007. Twin sisters Marge and Marianne Ganzer both died young. Marianne in 1970 of a drug overdose, and Marge in 1996 from breast cancer, adding a layer of real-life tragedy to a group known for melodramatic death songs.
They told me he was bad.
The motorcycle sound effects in Leader of the Pack weren't created using an actual motorcycle as many assume.
Leader of the pack.
The distinctive engine revving and crash sounds were produced in the studio by a combination of techniques, including turning a microphone stand on a concrete floor and using drums and cymbals for the crash. The song was initially banned by some radio stations who feared it glamorized motorcycle gangs and juvenile delinquency. When the BBC banned it in England, claiming it was too traumatic for the recently bereaved after a series of fatal road accidents, the publicity only increased its popularity. The song has since been recognized as a pioneering example of the death disc genre and notable for its ambitious production techniques that helped establish the tradition of narrative storytelling in pop music. Glad All Over by the Dave Clark Five represented the vanguard of the British invasion alongside the Beatles, though many don't realize how calculated their rise to fame actually was. Unlike most bands where the drummer took a back seat, Dave Clark himself was the group's manager, producer, and business mastermind, maintaining complete control of their output from the beginning. Clark, a former film stuntman, approached music as a business venture first and an artistic pursuit second. In an unprecedented move for the time, he retained ownership of all the band's master recordings, allowing him to control their releases and reissues decades later. The band's appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show in March of 1964 drew an estimated 70 million viewers, part of a carefully orchestrated strategy to position them as rivals to the Beatles. For a brief period in 1964, it seemed to work. Glad All Over knocked I Want to Hold Your Hand off the top of the UK charts, leading to media-fueled talk of Dave Clark 5 versus Beatles rivalries. Though they achieved 17 top 40 hits in America between 1964 and 1967, their star faded much faster than the Beatles or the Rolling Stones. After disbanding in 1970, Clark made savvy business moves, buying the rights to the 1960s music show Ready, Steady, Go, and packaging DC-5 appearances with those of other bands to sell as television programming. While his bandmates struggled financially in later years, Clark became wealthy through these ventures, rarely performing again, but controlling the band's legacy with the same precision he managed their career. The Dave Clark Five's legacy includes being one of the first British bands to tour America, arriving just weeks after the Beatles in 1964. But here's something rarely discussed. While many of their recordings featured uncredited session musicians, while Mike Smith's distinctive vocals and keyboard were genuine, there are persistent rumors that session musicians augmented or replaced other band members on recordings. This practice wasn't uncommon in the 1960s. The Monkees famously didn't play on their early records, but it contradicted the band's energetic live image. When they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2008, Dave Clark prohibited the surviving members from performing together at the ceremony, controlling their image to the very end. Lead singer Mike Smith died just days before the induction, adding a bittersweet note to their belated recognition. 1964 wasn't just another year in music. It was a revolution disguised as pop songs. These tracks captured the tension between old and new America, between facade and reality. As we've seen, the stories behind these seemingly simple songs reveal complex truths about art, business, and life. If you lived through this transformative time, you witnessed music history being written 145 RPM record at a time. Join us next week when we explore the forgotten one-hit wonders of the decade that deserve better. Keep those memories alive and keep the music playing.